Alrighty, sorry I just got home. Let's start today off, right? I'm giving you 5 pairs for today. For the zones that I'm going to be monitoring, we have UCAD, UJ, and EURUSD. These are the 3 pairs that you guys messaged me. So I will be talking into details about those, but I will give you what I see for EJ and GJ, since a lot of you are asking about where and what can happen. So let's get into it, all right? Starting with UCAD. So mind you, today we do have a high impact news on USD pairs later in the evening. There is, let's just check. Where is there we go. We have USD pairs at 6:45. Remind you that I am in Thailand. This is GMT +7. So check forexfactory.com to check your time zone, all right? But in an hour-ish, or 2 hours to be exact, we will have somewhat of a medium impact news, and later at 9 p.m. we have high impact news on USD. Okay, so for the USD pairs, which are all the 3 pairs that I'm going to be focusing on today, it might not have any movement until the news is released. So if that happens, you know what to expect at least, right? But for low risk, wait for the US session. If you're not comfortable with trading with the news, then wait for the news to be released first, then see where it goes, okay? So USD CAD, we are starting off with our sell zone up here, which is a fresh engulfing failed zone, right? If I were to drag it out, it's actually a previous support over here also. And this support was able to keep the price up, more than 600 or around 600 pips, come down, bounce up, bounce down for another good 300 to 400 pips before breaking. All right, so around this area, we just marked the freshest, the most fresh, which is this engulfing buy that failed, okay? This was the last support that it gave before breaking. So we have our sell zone up here. Then for our buy zone, it happened all the way from here. Okay, next to the current price, or closest to the current price, we have a sell that failed over here. In the process of failing, created a buy. So we have an EFEG buy zone that's waiting just right below the current price. All right, because it's so far, I had to put lines. These are the limit of the zones. Then the key level is over here, being 1.31698 to 1.31801. That's my key level for a buy. Okay, so now if I were to measure from the middle where the current price is at up to the, up until, why is my thing lagging? Okay, up until the sell zone is around 60 pips, but down to the buy key level is also around 60 pips. All right, so it can go anywhere when the news release. Because it's in the middle area, there's a likelier chance for it to test either of those 50-50. All right, so wait for the news to be released first. If you are a low risk trader, just see where it goes after the news is released. Then when it's playing around in the zone, you can switch down to a smaller time frame to find your setups. But either way, H4, if it's still going on a sell and it wants to retrace back to test this key level, then it has to not close above our buy fail. Okay, because if it closes above this zone, then potentially you might want to test a higher area, which we have in EFEG from here. Okay, above this we also have other zones where you can drag out, but the closest to the current price is this one. If it truly wants to go in a downtrend and continue with a strong momentum, it should not break this engulfing buy fail. But if it does, we still have other sell areas that we can look at. Okay, so either way, it's not a total loss. Then for our buy zone, it cannot close below 1.31473 for it to buy. Okay, so wait for the news to be released for it to come down either into our buy zone or our sell zone up above here. If it comes in and H4 still closes within, it doesn't matter if it leaves a wick outside. As long as the closing of the candle is still in the zone, then you can look for a sell from down up here and a buy from up here. But if H4 closes above or below these zones, then potentially you might want to test a higher area and the lower area respectively. Okay, again, wait for the H4 to come into your zones. If you are a lowest trader, wait for the news to be released, wait for the H4 to close first before deciding. If you have a higher risk appetite, when the price comes into our zones, then switch down to a smaller time frame to find a setup in M15 first. If you cannot find anything in M15, then switch down to M5. Wait for the setups to complete first before pressing anything. All right. Next, we have UJ. Now, UJ, this is also, it's currently in my sell zone on H4. Okay, my buy zone is down here, and we have two key levels in my buy zone. We have over here and over here. Okay, two key levels from an engulfing sell that failed over here. In the process of failing, created a buy, came back down, another buy, and another buy. So we have two key levels for this buy, closest to the current price. Current price is tapping into the sell zone, but this sell zone is this engulfing sell. Oops, excuse me. So sell meets sell, and now it's testing, but the key level is just a bit higher. Okay, so my key level for this is 141.724 to 141.889. So the price has to come in between these lines first for me to want to press anything. All right, so we're waiting for that for a sell. Now, because it's here, a lot of pairs are climbing into price areas where it hasn't been tested in so long. For UJ, as an example, it hasn't been in this price range since 2022, which was last year. So it dropped so far, and now it's climbing up to test all of these areas. That's why you have to kind of go quite far back, but this is not that far yet. So again, if H4 closes within, there's a chance for us to find a sell down, and if it decides to come into our buy zone, it can't close below 139.410, because if it does, then potentially it might want to test a lower area. But if it closes still within the zone and above 139.410, then we can look for our key levels, or not our key levels, our buy opportunities in these buy levels. Okay, so what do you do when you have two key levels? Let me explain, especially for newbies. Okay, if the price decides to come down and test this area on this, or in this key level, we have a buy meets buy. Not even that, we have a sell fail. The process of failing created this first engulfing buy. Then we have another engulfing buy that happened in the zone. So if I were to market for something for me to monitor when the price comes in, I can take a look at this zone right here. Okay, so now we have our first zone in the upper key level. If the price comes here and it respects our key level from this area and our M15, meaning it does not close below M15 for the M15 candle, then it can shoot up from here. But if M15 decides to close below, it might just drop down to touch this key level to test for anything before a buy up, if it wants to go in a buy. Okay, so what do? We just mark what happened in the next key level, another zone for us to monitor. So now we have two zones in our two key levels, ABC in this key level, and we have down below over here, which is an engulfing sell that failed. Fresh one, because it has yet to be tested. So now we just wait for the price to come. If it decides to come into either of the zones, whether my sell or buy key levels, and it has created a setup already, then once I press, I count 40 pips to be my SL, and then I let the trade run. Okay, but before you enter, make sure you have calculated what you are willing to lose in that setup. Okay, now last pair for EU. We have two sell zones, because yesterday was quite a push from EU. Okay, quite a push. Usually with news, EU doesn't travel much, so you get 60 to 80 pips if the volume is quite high. But yesterday, EU was able to make a record of flying almost 140 pips from our zone over here. Or over here, actually. This was the tap into the key level from yesterday. So from here, it flew almost probably more than 140 pips already. So now we have two sell zones and a buy zone down here. Okay, the reason why I put it as a buy zone, because this engulfing sell was respected. So I know that the sellers, once before it was broken, respected this area. But now that the buyers overpowered it, it becomes a failed zone. So this is a fresh engulfing fail because no candle has tested over here yet, either to respect or break. Then for our sell zone over here, it's an engulfing fail. The key level has yet to be tested, so we wait. And we have another sell zone up here, which is a buy that failed. Price came up, created the first engulfing sell and another engulfing sell. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3 key levels for EU. So again, wait for the news to release if you are a conservative trader. But when the price is in our key level area, go into a smaller time frame, define any setups before pressing anything. If there is nothing happening in the key levels, then you wait. Okay, because if you are looking at a sell zone, but when the price comes in and you just see engulfing buys and buys and buys, that does not give you anything. You can only see that the buyers are trying to push the price up to break the higher time frame zone. But if a buy happens in a sell zone, you need to look for a candle that can break it. So you anticipate for a fail. Once it fails, you wait for the price to come back, at least create the first engulfing before pressing. But if it comes up, creates a sell, then you wait for another sell to happen before pressing anything. All right, so as easy as that for EU. Okay, for your TPs, set your TPs at something that you're comfortable with. If you're someone who cuts your trades or close your trades manually, try to figure out what that amount of pips is. If you close your trades when it's running 10 pips, then your first TP will be 10 pips. Okay, that's just to help you rewire brain to let the trades close automatically rather than you manually closing them. Once you get comfortable, then increase it. My first TP usually is 20 pips. Then I just break it down up until the next key level. All right, so that's for EU. I'm gonna send this first, and I'm gonna send what I think about EJ and GJ.